Inflation statistics are here. Will XRP and Solana be next? If you stay for this whole live stream, you will find these things out. Not to mention, are Bitcoin and Ethereum done for the summer? Is crypto done for the summer? We're going to get into that. We're going to get into Bitcoin treasury. We're going to do everything you need. This is the market update. I am your host, Bill Noble. We got a big show for you today. So if you want to leave a comment, hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we do a show in the morning now and a show in the afternoon and the evening. So we also did a show last night. We did Crypto Happy Hour. We'll talk more about that later. Now let's talk about inflation. The CPI number comes out today. Everyone's all wound up about it. It's going to be an absolute nothing burger, and here's why. The Bureau of Labor Statistics hasn't been telling the truth about inflation for years. It's probably been overstated so Powell can keep rates high. Now, why would Powell want to keep rates high? Well, he doesn't want to go down as the Fed chairman that let inflation loose twice. That's kind of obvious. The not obvious thing is that the Fed is a bank, all right, and they pay out interest. So they're paying 4.5% interest to big banks who deposit money there. So it's almost like Wall Street welfare. Seriously. Not to mention the fact that, I don't think Jerome Powell, generally speaking, is working in your interest. So when the orange man comes in and changes the guy who runs the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we're finally going to know what the actual number is. And you know what? Certainty is good for markets. Now, maybe the markets will be a little skittish and be like, well, what are they going to put out? But you know what? Might actually get the truth. And the truth is probably inflation has calmed down substantially because the labor market stinks. There's no growth in the labor market. Now you're like, Bill, for God's sakes, man, I'm trying to have my coffee. What does this have to do with crypto? This interest rate situation where, Powell is going to be pressured to lower rates. And even if Powell doesn't do it, you realize that the bond market can lower rates. It feels like speculation can start coming back to crypto. Don't you remember all those videos from 2021 or even last year? It's like, what's the next 10X? What's the next 50X? Yeah, there are guys in the meme coin trenches, I guess, but nobody ever talks about like any type of tech crypto doing a huge move. I mean, we have had Lido Finance, right? And a couple of, social altcoins and of course, there's also ENA that have gone nuts on the upside, but those are the exception, not the rule. So bringing it all together, you see Powell in a situation where rates are too high and they have to eventually come down, or if Powell just talks dovish, meaning, okay, we're going to lower rates, we're going to change our bias, speculation begins. Because right now, what have you had? Well, you had the Bitcoin ETF, and Bitcoin went up because, the dollar had to go down and something had to go up, so it was gold and Bitcoin. Okay, and then it became gold, Bitcoin, and Ethereum because, BlackRock just bought it all. And it's really funny. Last week was the first time you had a daily inflow into the Ethereum ETF of greater than $1 billion, right? Because, at 1,400, nobody wanted to touch it. But, at 4,000, it's much more attractive. It's necessary for my portfolio. Don't you love people in equities, right? They love to buy because they think they're going to buy it higher. Okay. So you're going on vacation. It's the last 2 weeks in August. So nobody in Europe works in August, period. You can feel free to comment whether you believe that or not. And this is the period where, like, starting Friday, like, New York is done, right? They are headed for the beach. They are out right now. Again, hedge funds are trying to short equities. If that is necessary, if that's going to work, it's not going to work until after Labor Day in the beginning of September around the lunar eclipse. But you got to understand something. Most altcoins have not moved. Okay, so yeah, we've had a 3-day rally and some coins have done well. Fine. Like Lido and ENA did real good. I believe that there's another token, Zora, right? A social token on base. Oh, okay. Right. So what else? What else has gone up a lot? Has Polkadot gone up a lot? Have any of these layer ones? Avalanche hasn't moved. All of the layer ones, Near, and even Solana, right, have not moved. And of course, there's XRP, where you had basically insiders unloading on the coin. And the most important thing is it didn't go down, right? No, it went down, but that was like an organic correction. It didn't break down is what I'm really saying. And there's all this talk now about the amount of money that's coming to XRP Ledger. Now, I don't know if that's just the, let's say something about XRP today news, because there is a lot of that, right? But, Brad Garlinghouse was trending on Twitter overnight, ironically saying Bitcoin was going to go to 250K this year. Okay, well, there's a lot of people saying that, but let's think about what that could mean. First of all, if you have a banana zone move, because that's, you'd have to have an insane move in the fourth quarter of this year. You would have to have some kind of shocking disorder. You'd have to have a problem in legacy. You'd have to have a problem with banks, stocks, the Japanese financial system. Bitcoin is just not going to go to 250K all on its lonesome, right? It ain't. So if you're talking about that kind of move, everyone's like, well, the cycle is dead. Listen, people, if you go from 120 to 250 in 3-4 months, you're going to have a substantial correction when that's over. You'd be better off with Bitcoin going stair step, right? My colleague likes to call it acting like a stock. Because if you do this huge ramp, you're going to have a huge correction, period. Now, again, I'm sure Brad would love to have Bitcoin at 250 because that would mean, XRP would be much higher. Now, I'm sure one of the reasons, other than the obvious reason that Brad and Ripple have a ton of XRP on their books, is that the higher Ripple goes, the bigger a takeover target it becomes. In other words, if XRP is at $7, Ripple can IPO at a substantial valuation, or people will have to pay more to buy Ripple as a company. And that, I think, has to be their ultimate game. Because, XRP does have shares. They trade. It just because it's not a publicly traded company doesn't mean they don't have stock. Like OpenAI has stock that they give their employees. It's not public, but they have it. I think Novogratz has tons of it, really. And he's the guy from Galaxy Digital. So, his objective is to get taken over. Now, when you move back over to Bitcoin, you can see these treasury companies, right? Metaplanet is back after it. You're going to see Michael Saylor soon, right? They're going to start using the pause in Bitcoin volatility, just like they did around the 100, and just start accumulating. Like, volatility is a metric that comes from the options market. It's complicated, right? But, Bitcoin volatility is slowing, which is typical in August, but basically it's gotten to its lowest level ever, ironically. So no one expects Bitcoin to move, which means it could, or maybe the market is right. Maybe Bitcoin doesn't move. And now that everybody on the institutional side is gig along Bitcoin and possibly Ethereum and the Magnificent Seven stocks, now that they're all long that, The herd is always long the wrong thing in a bull market, right? So it's like, I'm bullish, I'm long, I got the Bitcoin Ethereum ETF, and BlackRock doesn't want an XRP ETF, probably because it's a little centralized. But what goes up? You know, what they don't like, what they can't figure out how to trade, and what everyone hates. That's what happened to Ethereum, right? And it's going to happen. I'm guessing XRP and Solana, because no one likes it. You know, Bitcoin Cash is back at it again. Now, generally speaking, Bitcoin Cash rallies are not necessarily good for the market. That said, Bitcoin Cash did take off before Bitcoin did. You know, it gave you like a Bitcoin Cash rally and then 2 days of a scare where all us macro equity nerds like were dumping our positions and getting negative. And as I've said all week, you know, I turned that around real quick, like real quick. Crypto Path smashed the like button for the Spartans from Patreon. So there's a Patreon and there's the YouTube member area. Please feel free to check that out. BRC is asking me, what's my favorite 50 million market cap? Okay, well, I know there's a real world asset play called Block that's at about 100 million, right? I don't know what, I think it's called ZK Sync, right? That might be at 50 million market cap because it's like AI and privacy. It's absolutely radical. Okay. Block is around 100 million. And I'm a big antivirus guy, which is a privacy play. Everything in privacy has gotten smacked after Tornado Cash, like absolutely smacked. I'm looking up ZK Sync right now. Listen, but you got the right idea. You want to be thinking about 50 million and under. Like if you go to like say Banter Bubbles, you know, you want to start looking at the small caps because I don't think anybody is looking at the small caps. They're not, because there's no talk about it. I mean, I'm sure there's people in the meme trenches. Now, speaking of the meme trenches, has Pepe gone up? No. Has Doge gone up? No. I mean, there was a rally in Bonk. There's been no movement in big memes. No big movement in memes that can be considered money, right? Like nothing. And I'm sitting here looking at Solana, right? At a total market cap of 94 billion. So Solana is not even worth $100 billion. That is crazy. A lot of people have been asking me, is Solana going to get to Ethereum's valuation one day? Sure. But you realize Solana's it's got to go up something like, you know, $115 billion to get to XRP. I don't know what they're doing in Solana, right? I have no idea. It's like it's been left by the side of the road. You know, the other thing that I think you got to start looking at, I'm staring at both of them, all three of them right now. Chainlink. Solana takes off. Chainlink is going to go to 50 because you will have an obvious cross-chain world. And there are a ton. We were in the YouTube member area today with small caps because that's where we do the small caps. Oh my God, people, there are little tiny cross-chain plays everywhere. Hyperliquid was like a runner-up in like a portfolio coin picking thing that we did. And right under that is Stellar. And what happened to Sui? There's three coins. What happened to Sui? What happened to SEI? And what happened to Tau in the AI world? I mean, obviously, Sui led the move, right? Sui went first. The small guy goes, and then big boy ETH went after that. Okay, great. But, you know, what about these coins? Like, what are the next group of coins that are going to get and catch everybody sleeping? Because as you can tell, the market doesn't rally all at once, even though that's everybody's like total dream come true, right? They all want 2021 back where everything can go up and they can allegedly dump it on everybody before it goes down. Of course, what people forget about 2021 was that, it was going up so much, nobody dumped it. Nobody dumped it, right? Everyone's like, okay, this is going up forever. Bitcoin was like at, I don't know, it was at 70 or 60, 68 or 69. Everybody thought it was going to 100, and then it just fell apart. Okay. So you don't want 2021 all over again. You want a sustained rally. So we got Ron in here, right? Banging away. If you see these emojis in the chat, those are our YouTube members. You can get a $4 emoji, or you can get the research for more, but we definitely appreciate seeing our members like JB. And we have Alexandra from Switzerland, no doubt loving this early time for our friends in Europe who need to get the knowledge, right, at midday. Now, when you see XRP take off, that is another sign that Chainlink could rally, right? They could both go. Chainlink is going to go with the next big token that moves. And I'm going to tell you something funny. The tokens for the second half of August, I got a video coming out later on today. It's not Bitcoin and it's not Ethereum. It's not, right? Because they've done their thing and everyone is long that. Like, CryptoPath says SEI is really undervalued. Dude, I think the entire layer one universe, because remember, ETH got it all started. Speaking of 2021, ETH got it all started back then, right? I mean, ETH was the dominant leader, and then everyone was like, wait a minute, there's something here other than ETH. None of that has been touched. I guess we're waiting for BlackRock to buy it. I mean, what are we waiting for? BlackRock doesn't want to do the XRP ETF. I'm like, great. It'll be much more attractive with XRP at $7. In the meantime, let the market fly. The stuff that goes into ETFs, okay, they have big moves, but then they sort of settle, right? Like everyone's like, oh my God, ETH is going to 15,000. Okay, yeah, maybe, right? Everyone's like, oh God, Bitcoin's going to 250. Okay, maybe. But isn't the trade somewhere else? Like, for example, name a real world asset coin. I'll wait. No, not too long, because I know you want to stay here to hear about all the real world asset coins. I mean, you can just rattle them off, right? We talked about them yesterday in the YouTube member stream, but I mean, some of them are obvious, right? You have Ondo, Token, right? You have, you have Clearpool, Goldfinch, right? I mean, all the lending protocols, checks, right? You pick. No one has touched this. BlackRock was supposedly working with Ondo. They never made an announcement. And then, of course, you saw Lido, right? That was ETH staking, right? And if you haven't looked up Lido, you should, because that went vertical. What about Aave? There's Aave and Uniswap. Oh my God, right? All this stuff that, is ETH connected hasn't done anything. Nothing, right? Especially when you look at things like a DeFi basket. Right? What's DeFi done? Everyone's like, well, what's DeFi? Well, how are you getting a rally in Ethereum and not getting a rally in DeFi? That's absolutely nuts. And an opportunity for you. Now let's talk about stonks. All the hedge funds want to get short stonks. They do, because they think it's absurdly overvalued and they're worried that there's an AI bubble. Okay, well, the value of AI, as long as the value of AI and AI-related companies continues to float higher, crypto's got to catch up rapidly, right? And still the entire altcoin world, again, like I said, privacy untouched, AI untouched, DeFi untouched, gaming, you're like, gaming, what's that? Right? Name a gaming coin, right? Name one, right? Are you a fan of Moonwell? Yes, right? Because I think, Aero is so volatile, and there's nothing wrong with Aero, but I mean, if you get like a 40 or 50% spike in Aero, Okay. You can start moving somewhere else. Moonwell is, Prasad is asking, what will XRP be worth? Okay. Well, we have upside targets for that in the YouTube member area. But what I can tell you is it's probably not $589. Okay. It's probably not that. But XRP can be worth as a project 500 billion. That's where ETH is, or $1 trillion. Because if XRP is a part of the new Magnificent Seven, valuations in crypto can expand dramatically. So, I mean, can XRP go to $10, $15? Yeah, right. That's not going to happen tomorrow. But I mean, valuations in crypto will rise, especially as equities maybe aren't the place to go, right? Maybe as people realize that, hey, this is not it, right? The valuation, the trade in equities has happened, right? You are not going to get the returns in equities, right? NVIDIA is not going to double from here. It's not going to happen. But you have, cryptos like XRP, like Solana. I mean, do you realize in Solana that, your January location for Solana was like 200 something, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, this is going massively higher. And it just flatlined. I mean, Solana in January was at 294. I'm like, my glasses. I'm like, really? Wow. 294 for Solana. And people think the market is done because ETH went up. No, ETH is the catalyst for it all to move. I mean, Altcoin Daily had Cardano on the cover, the other day, talking about Charles Hoskinson, which is really funny because Charles Hoskinson, for the Cardano treasury, bought a bunch of Bitcoin. The guy's bearish his own coin. And XRP is the same way. XRP insiders dumping it. What happens if someone wakes up or these guys have a catalyst? I don't know, right? What does everyone hate? What does everyone hate? And what does no one own? That's the other thing, right? All these hedge funds are underinvested. Alan is here from South Carolina. Welcome. And Daniel J is here from the Jersey Shore, which is where all of New York is headed right now. What do I think of Hyperliquid? You know what? I think Hyperliquid was on a strong uptrend. And of all the coins that we liked in our Patreon Platinum area, Hype was, like a runner-up. Now, again, Hype was up a lot. There could be a head and shoulders top. But if you have a head and shoulders top, or you have something that looks like it, and it doesn't work, it can be a powerful upside catalyst. Now, Hype has already outperformed, right? And nothing outperforms forever. Nothing. So maybe Hype's got to go sideways. I mean, everyone who's been in XRP knows, like, it's a reverse, right? Nothing outperforms forever. And sometimes, it underperforms forever. It's called the expensive get more expensive and the cheap get cheaper. Okay. Aero is moving like Matic did, last cycle. Yeah. I mean, again, all this Coinbase finally waking up, right? That leaves an opening for Aero. And I guess if there's a short squeeze in equities, if they do the final squeeze, I guess the crypto-based equities can also do well, right? That's possible. But I think you got to start looking at crypto, as a very unique asset class, right? Like looking at it with stocks. I mean, what good did that do you 2 or 3, 4 days ago? You turn around and you're like, oh my God, ETH is going up. You had to move fast. So worrying about what these other markets do, I don't know. That was cool in 2018. And now everybody on crypto Twitter is like, I'm a macro expert. I'm an expert on CPI. I'm an expert on money supply. Look at this stable coin creation. You want to know what the creation of stable coins look like? It's look like this. Yeah. The amount of stable coins flooding into this market, a market that, people are underinvested in. They're underinvested, right? Which is why when ETH behaves like it does, it goes vertical. And that is contagious, literally, right? That can spill over. Maybe it's not the coins I mentioned, but go look up DeFi coins. Go look up RWA coins. Like, how many AI coins can you name outside of like artificial superintelligence token, Fetch, and Tau? How many AI coins can you name? I can tell you what the answer is. Not that many. Just not that many at all. Right? People are missing out. Like there's Powell that I'm looking at, right? That's another AI coin that no one has paid attention to. And if you zoom out, right, this goes back to the bigger the base, the higher in the space. Most altcoins have not moved. And really, all you need to get it going is to have one sector or one deal. Like maybe it's going to be BlackRock with a real world asset deal, or maybe it's going to be a bank that's going to come in and start trading on Uniswap or start using Aave to create yield on crypto. You don't know. But all I know is if you get one, it only takes one catalyst. If you get one big catalyst in crypto, when people are not paying attention to smaller coins, that's how you get a bigger move. Now, there's also an alternative thing where markets can sometimes bore you out, like bull markets. They can bore you. So what happens if the last 2 weeks in August are boring? They usually are. And what happens if September, which I didn't think was going to be a very good month, but maybe September is boring, right? Maybe Bitcoin and ETH just sit around. Maybe there are occasional rallies. But what happens if they bore you out? And then all of a sudden in Q4, you have the banana zone the way you had it in 2017, right? Sometimes there's a famous phrase: the money is not in the buying and the selling. The money is made in the waiting. And I notice a lot of people who are frustrated, like when we do AMA on like the regular stream or at the VIP live stream today. I mean, we didn't get to talk 15 minutes with people like, what about Caspa? What about Tia? What about Ski Mask Dog? What about my coin? Right? And most people, I'm going to be honest, the stuff that people are asking about, they may be long, like Lido or ENA, but a lot of what people are asking us about, and we're happy to help them, but it's bag holders, right? They get a rally and they wish they could get a rally in their coin, and they're upset because they're not only are they holding a bag from higher levels, but their coin hasn't moved and they're upset. So think about it. People are long the wrong stuff. People could get bored. People could get upset. This is a bull market, by the way. And bull markets are not easy, right? This is what happens. And then you get this idea that, everyone wants to do Bitcoin and Ethereum. That ship could have sailed, right? I mean, yeah, that stuff could go up later. But like I said, I don't know that you want to live in a world where Bitcoin and Ethereum go straight up, because that's where, big macro problems are having. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I don't know how we're doing on people coming in. We have Lee from Atlanta is here. What about True Finance? Okay. I'm actually okay with True Finance, right? I don't know how it's doing on the chart. I'll kind of eyeball it here. Listen, that's making a big triangle formation at the bottom. Look, and it's headed like for the apex. All of these coins are like winding themselves up, right? All right. Ben Cohen is a one-man altcoin wrecking crew. Yeah, man, he's a big BTC maximalist, but he was looking at some of the charts that I was looking at, possibly different, and he called the bottom in ETH BTC, even though, frankly, I think that was easy. But I mean, look, dude, he's got it going on Bitcoin, and he never got off Bitcoin when it was down. Now, he was just nominated for, best Bitcoin content. I don't know how he loses those things, but the guy's invented advanced Bitcoin TA. CryptoPath reminding you to hit the like button. ZBCN, okay, was outperforming and continues to do so. There is a lot of support underneath the market. Okay, again, nothing outperforms forever, but if ZBCN or the rest of the market is like soft, then it's going to glide right into support. Like, one of the things about this market is that, they sold Stellar, Cardano. They sold it into rock solid support. Wolf Riot Star is here. Welcome, sir. Welcome. All right. So I hear from a good day, Ben. Good evening to you. My understanding from the Eagle King is that the way these shorts work is that more people join. So don't forget to hit the notification button, because we're serious about doing this at 8 a.m. Eastern every day. And of course, we always appreciate you hitting the like button on your phone. We always appreciate that. All right. So, the orange man has got somebody inside his administration who's about to purchase $750,000 worth of Bitcoin. $760 million. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Silicon Valley, Peter Thiel, related, just call it related tech stocks. They're not exactly having a good PR month. They're not. They might start buying Bitcoin. In other words, I know I just got done saying that, it may not be all about Bitcoin, but one catalyst is that, like what happens when Elon gets involved. You got a lot of people jumping on like ETH treasuries. I don't know that they're done with Bitcoin treasuries yet, right? In other words, you could have a couple of major players get involved. I think the dinky companies may be done, but the big boys may not be, right? So, the big get bigger, and they have a very serious PR problem, and they're borrowing tons of money. Morgan Stanley said these guys are going to borrow $1 trillion together. Okay. Bill, do you think NFTs are toasted due to AI? Okay, well, if NFTs come back, it's going to be because AI agents start making fine art. It's also going to be humans start making fine art, because the more stuff the machines make, the more the stuff done by humans will be worth. That's my contrarian theory, right? You also got to ask yourself, they just came out with Chat GPT-5. I've been using it heavily, but you got to start asking yourself, what is AI going to look like, say, in January of next year? Holy cow, right? Hello, Mr. Noble. Any reason why you don't acknowledge your Puerto Rican roots? Are you mad at Puerto Rico? Sir, I am definitely not mad at Puerto Rico. I have friends down there. I am Italian, English, and Ukrainian, believe it or not. That's why, the Ukrainian stature, that Eastern European build, I can't get my weight below 240. So that's my nationality. DC Precise is here. Felix is like, this market stinks. Dude, I'm telling you, this is the most difficult bull market, right? Because the winners are the institutions who are investing in the ETFs, and everybody is still holding a bag either from December or from late 2023. I get it. And it's a pain. The thing is, if you get frustrated and you get out, that's why I keep talking about, this is like guy I listened to, Jordy Visser, right? AI rises in value, crypto goes with it. Why? Because crypto is a disruptor of the system, right? It's not just Bitcoin, right? You can run tons of applications on ETH, Solana, all this stuff. I know that's basic, but, this is going to disrupt the banks. This is going to disrupt the entire capitalist system. This is going to disrupt the holidays. Are you telling me you can buy steak and fries at Steak and Shake? Are you telling me that people aren't going to be accepting crypto at Christmas? Now, I know I've said that 3 years in a row, but for real, right? Okay. EB Lifting got here. When is CPI going to come out? Well, CPI is out and up slightly. Okay. The great Santini approves of my Italian roots. Actually, I was raised Italian by a Ukrainian woman who cooked Italian, right? Because my father was, my father was, he was very Italian, right? But, again, we'll go into that story someday soon. All right. Radical is here. Welcome, sir. Not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. We have Daniel J here from the shore. Galaxy Digital up 3x since the spring. Yeah, I mean, crypto equities have been the place to be, which is funny because they bought the crypto stocks, but not crypto. What do I think about Rari? Okay, I think if you have bags and you think stuff is not performing, okay, like I don't know anything about Rari. I will try to pull up the chart as we're talking, right? It's hard to do live TA on a vertical stream, but I can certainly try. Okay. Again, dude, there is the bigger the base, the higher in the space. And then there's the double spike, right? Rari went up and then it came back down and then tried to spike up again and it didn't make it. A lot of times when that happens, that's it, right? But if you understand the fundamentals or you like it, if you love it, keep it. If you're holding a bag, your accountant might like it if you dumped it and went to something else. Okay. Okay. So hello, Crypto Noble. When speaking about crypto, could you explain the volatility, right? Can you explain the volatility? Yeah, I can. So the Fed doesn't control crypto. Like BlackRock can maybe move it around with that ETF, but that's not always true. Michael Saylor, almost in a way, controls Bitcoin with the ongoing purchases. The volatility in crypto, right, has to do with, there are institutions, but they're not big, right? And the altcoins are wild because there are perpetual futures, right? You have a lot of leveraged futures trading. And believe it or not, altcoins, the volatility in altcoins is very similar to the volatility that you had in, I know this is laughable, in commodities in the 70s, soybeans, beef, feeder cattle, pork bellies, corn, right? These were wildly volatile markets because you would literally have individuals physically in the pit, plumbers, trading their rent money against giant hedge funds. When these giant hedge funds would come into the market, I mean, there was a system developed by Tom DeMark, right, in a room full of, in a skyscraper filled with programmers to help hedge funds get in and out of these tiny markets. So you have hedge funds playing in altcoins, you do. So when they come in or retail comes in mass, they'll come in at the same time. Frequently there's, when everybody comes in, there's no seller, like meme coins. That's why they moved the way they do. Because, on the way to 50 million, there's nobody there. There's like people who are original holders that have it that sell on the way up. But, that's what you have. You had herd mentality in memes. And then the volatility comes from the fact that it's small guys trading literally against big guys. And the big guys, when they want to move it around, they move it around. Like, that's what I was talking about. Like, there was no seller in Ethereum on the way up. You're like, oh, what happened? Yeah, dude, there's no seller. And in 2022, when FTX blew up, there was no buyer. None, right? All these leveraged sellers, all these people who borrowed money and couldn't pay it back, what did they have to do? They had to dump their Bitcoin in order to pay the loans back. There was no bid. Nobody. That was before BlackRock. I mean, Michael Saylor had it. But Michael Saylor bought it at 48K, right? They were dumping it at 25, no bid. This, I think, is exactly the opposite. We're just waiting for the catalyst to start moving crypto like on a sector base, like equities, right? Everybody thinks this is 2021. It absolutely isn't, right? ETH is almost to 4,400. You know, that was the original idea that, you know, if ETH broke 4,250, that 4,500 was next. Again, ETH is the rising tide that lifts all boats, right? So wouldn't CPI being a cause for a dump? Okay, well, I don't have the CPI numbers in front of me, but remember what Wall Street does is they trade versus expectation. They don't trade the number, right? They trade what was the number versus what was expected. And frequently that's not even humans. Most of that's done by algorithms, right? So an algorithm will see that, hey, you know, Bitcoin, or I'm sorry, inflation was better than what they expected. Therefore, ramp everything, right? Ramp ETH, you know, ramp Polkadot. It's happening, right? In other words, there's no seller in altcoins. Like they're headed for the beach, and who's going to sell it to them? When big institutions go, you know, it's horrible. This happens all the time in crypto. I talk about this, right? You're on your phone, you're at the beach, and you're like, oh my God, I'm underinvested, right? Buy. Just buy it so I can go back to the beach. That's what's been happening in ETH. That's what's going on. People are just like, I have to buy it. And I don't care. Buy me something. Right. And that's when you start getting moves in the liquid cryptos, which is why I'm talking about like Chainlink and stuff like that. Okay, here comes the producer, Eagle King, the greatest producer, right? So July CPI rose softer than hopes, right? So it was, 2.7%, but the core rate of 3.1 was disappointing. The mixed data, nevertheless, isn't likely to lessen the case for a September rate cut. Okay, so that's what they're saying, right? Inflation is 3% here, 2.7% there. It's not horrible. Buy everything, right? I mean, that's the first trade. Sometimes the first trade off these numbers, right? Crypto plumber is like bots, algorithms, whatever, right? You can tell by the way it's trading. By the way, you get, how the dips in this market, you know how long you got? You got about 24 hours. You get about 24 hours of lousy price action. Everything's down 5%. Everybody thinks it's turned. You have the reversal, right? Everything goes up. Everything comes back down. And it's a horrendous candlestick, but you don't get follow through. If anything, you get people buying the dip, right? So if you get this ugly candle and then they come up underneath it and they put a floor in, it's not going down. That's what people say. It's like, oh my God, we had the grossest candle in a while, like that shoot up in Bitcoin to 123. And everyone's like, we're filling the CME gap at, I don't know, what, 117. I don't even know what the CME, where it is, but Bitcoin's going to 117. Okay, bro, good luck with that. It's not going down because there's no seller. There's no seller, right? Who is going to go, oh yeah, let's dump Bitcoin? Not unless you have a stock market problem, which, why would you have a stock market problem in August? You don't have stock market problems in August. You have stock market problems after Labor Day, but not now, right? So you had 1 day to get long crypto, right? So, just looking at inflation, CPI moved up 2.7%, the highest level since February, right? Despite rising inflation, the Fed is expected to cut rates. Okay. So, the macro guys are looking at this. They just decided to pump crypto. If they're pumping crypto off this news, I guess that's even more impressive. Because, I don't know. The first thing I can think of is, if nobody cares about CPI, maybe crypto is something that doesn't move based on traditional economic indicators anymore. People have not figured this out. Like I said, 3 days ago, stonks went down and it looked like it was just going to crash. And then crypto just went up. And if crypto is going up on a lousy inflation number, you better watch out. You better watch out. All right, people. I think that's it for today. I don't know how long we went. The Eagle King will tell me the numbers. All right. So don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you know that this stream is coming, right? Leave a comment, hit the like button. We will see you next time.